Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us Joshua B. Lee, who's the founder and CEO of StandOut Authority. Joshua, welcome to the program.
Mike, I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the call today.
Yeah, I forget how we got connected up, but boy, stand out and authority are three powerful words, so I really am excited to dive into what you guys do. But first, give us a little bit of your background and what has your entrepreneurial journey been like?
Yeah, Mike, no worries, man. It's I'll do the short version to be able to kind of save everyone time, but I started my first company almost 20 years ago in the online advertising space with clients like MySpace, Facebook, and Google. And then, kind of adjusted, right? I mean, monetized tons of traffic. I've monetized over $500 million in advertising. I controlled 35 trillion online impressions and, built multiple different companies doing that. But I had a massive shift in my career about 7 years ago where I went through a life shift and change and shut down my companies and restarted. And that's where StandOut Authority was born, shifting away from just monetizing traffic because most people don't understand what traffic really is, and actually moving to like true engagement and really shifting my focus to the human side. And that's where I found LinkedIn and how we actually started working with some men and women that I used to be able to read their books on how to start my own companies. And now I get to call them clients to be able to help them really, build their voice and connect with their audience on LinkedIn.
I think that's, you said a mouthful there, of course, pivoting and stopping and shifting and find their voice. I kind of feel like one of the elements of your pivot may have been when you throw a bunch of money at any campaign, if there isn't a strong and solid foundation there underlying, then you're wasting money and you're wasting leads, right, and the leads aren't good. So for instance, it's kind of like the old, if you have a great SEO campaign and people see you online and then they click and then they see all these bad reviews, or your website looks horrible, or you don't really have your messaging dialed in, then you may as well not be doing that SEO. So it's kind of like if you don't have those things, put the pause on those ad campaigns and then build the foundation first. And that's what you're doing, is helping your clients with messaging and then your platform of choice on LinkedIn.
Yeah, Mike. And I mean, what the things that we do on there, look, let's just be honest. I mean, everything I'm doing are just the same things that my mother taught me how to treat another human being. We're just doing it online since we've forgotten this in this age of automation on how to be able to just be ourselves and, speak to others as like you and I are having a conversation, but we're speaking at people so much. So you've got to be able to not only have that foundation, like you said, like how many times we run across someone that doesn't have their LinkedIn profile fully built out and really standing for who they are and telling their story. And it's more of a resume. And then, then they want to go in and go, hey, let's do advertising. I'm like, well, how much money are you willing to lose to figure out what works?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like the if you try to sow those seeds on ground that is not prepared the right way, they might sprout just a little, but then they just die right off. So that's an important piece. So talk a little bit about that human algorithm. I know that you say you don't want to focus on B2B or B2C. It's just humans.
Yeah. I mean, look, guys like you and I, developed B2B and B2C, business to business and business to consumer years ago to really diversify ad spend, right? Mm-hmm. Sorry about that. I had a call coming in to diversify ad spend. And, really what it is every company is run by another human being. Most marketers have just forgotten that. So it's not B2B or B2C, it's H to H, human to human, right? Yeah. And when we're talking and building out these marketing and funneling, who are the people that are running these companies? Who are the people that are making the decisions? Because that's what you should be building your messaging, your marketing, your advertising, your branding for. Because in all essence, there's going to be another human being, not the company as a brand, right? We have to be able to connect on that emotional level, that human level. And that's what the biggest shift that we kind of work on is how do we actually connect rather than just sell, right? It's all about educate, inspire, and draw someone in, not sell them.
So what would that look like specifically? Because I think that people would hear that and nod their head and smile and say, yeah, I agree with that. human connection, engage, don't tell or sell, educate. I get all that, but what does that look like on LinkedIn? Because that's your platform of choice.
Of course. Mike, let me just be honest, right? This is the way you're looking at it. You're trying to be able to go through, and it starts off, right? We are in this constant cycle. If anyone's seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix, we've all seen over the last 20 years, we've been conditioned, right? And we've been conditioned to like, comment, share, post, right? We're in this constant cycle, and we've got to create these stopgaps. And those stopgaps start with dopamine hits that we've all been conditioned to be able to look for as well, too. And those dopamine hits, when we post online, are when someone likes or comments on our post. Like, no matter how we actually share or what we intend our share online to be, our first and foremost thing that we're looking for are those dopamine hits that we get that like or comment from. That gives us validation. So what we look at this is, I hate cold call, I hate cold email. So I want to engage with people that engage with me. So if someone's engaging on my content or looking at my profile on LinkedIn, we want to reach out. My mother always taught me to be able to start with appreciation. So Mike, if you check me out on LinkedIn, and I notice that it's one of the few platforms that we actually see who looks at us, we can go out and go, hey, Mike, I saw you recently checked out my profile. I just want to take 2 seconds out and say thank you. Too often we don't appreciate the little things, and I'd love to be able to connect with you and find out what pushed you to check me out, right? I just thank you for something that you took for granted. And you took for granted looking at someone's profile, looking at or liking someone's post. By receiving appreciation for something we take for granted, it creates a stopgap in someone's pattern. Now they're actually listening to us. Now we can have a conversation. And so that's where it starts, right? And so on LinkedIn, we start with that appreciation. We then start off, next thing on LinkedIn, most people kind of go through and they go, oh, you know what? I connected. Now it's time for the pitch. Yeah. And this is where we all get upset with LinkedIn because we feel like we're getting spammed all the time. So we kind of switch around. And after meeting someone, starting with appreciation, again, my mother always taught me to be able to give someone a compliment. So on LinkedIn, a compliment's kind of like giving an endorsement. So we give an endorsement. That kind of allows someone to be able to go, hey, Mike, man, thank you so much for endorsing me. Now I can ask a question about them, and then I can actually provide value based off of that. So we're having multiple different touch points. And then that's very short and precise. It doesn't really go into the depth, and I'm happy to dive in deeper, Mike. But this, what we're trying to be able to do is start a conversation that turns into a relationship that creates an opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with that 1,000%. Love the starting off with gratitude and appreciation, and that's like the Bob Berg Go Giver way. Love that. I've got a question, and what I would also say is, probably if we were to pull up, and read one of the messages that you would send out, they're not 19 paragraphs, right? They're like
no, not at all.
Quote unquote Dean Jackson 9-word email. It'd be like pop, 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 and so I think that's important because then it is humanizing. It's you're not going to, maybe you don't capitalize every letter and things like that. But you mentioned endorsement, which I find curious because how do you endorse someone that you don't know? If you just connected with them on LinkedIn, doesn't that feel disingenuous? Because if someone endorsed me and I'm like, I have no clue who you are, then I'm confused.
Well, Mike, the way we look at it is, how many times have you walked up to someone that you just recently met and they're like, oh man, nice shirt, nice car, great hat, whatever it might be. Being able to go through, I love your dog. It's a very similar situation. People are trying to take this on a business platform and going, oh, well, this is specific for the business aspect. We're just giving a compliment to somebody. And as human beings, that human algorithm, we appreciate the compliment. And that's all we're going to be able to do is start a conversation. Give without expecting to receive. So we're starting with appreciation. We're giving a compliment, which then they can choose, right? They can choose to hit that button and go back in and say that LinkedIn makes super easy. Hey, thanks, Josh, for endorsing me for marketing. Now I can say, yeah, no problem. Happy to be able to do it. Hey, quick question for you while I have you. And, it's very conversational speak. I'm not speaking at someone, and that's the biggest shift with all this. And we're not following up. Like on LinkedIn, someone sends a message, you don't respond. How many times do they message you till you finally just delete them? Well, sometimes 2 or 3 times you're like, I didn't respond the first time. And so it's really just conversational and being able to take it at a pace that you're just building relationships.
And that might take a minute or two to look at that person's profile and so in other words, this is not spray and pray, blast it out.
No,
this
not at all.
is, hey, I noticed that you guys went to that event. How'd you like it? Hey, I noticed that your LinkedIn profile, you posted up the whatever. So I think that's a big shift too, because I think too many people do like what you were mentioning a second ago, like, comment, share, and think that that's going to do it. But you got to get a little bit more granular.
Yeah, no, and that's the whole piece, right? We see these different things, like you mentioned, Dean Jackson. Him and I have had conversations. I used to run, LinkedIn for, Joe Polish as well. So, Dean Jackson, you probably know Joe, or Dan Sullivan. They've been clients, and this is what we're trying to be able to do, is build those relationships, because, as influencers, we forget that, right? The people that have made us are the people that are engaging on our content. To be able to give them an acknowledgement of liking a post, right? Hey, John, I saw you like my recent post. I just want to take 2 seconds to thank you. That creates change in someone's life. It can truly be a massive shift. I mean, one time working with Dan, we did that to someone, and his response, it changed his life, because he was at a point, Mike, to be 100% transparent, his message back was, thank you. I was taking the things, this changed my perspective, because I was not appreciating these things. And he was looking, it's hard for me to even put out, because it's so emotional when I think about the statement that came back, but he had talked about ending his life, but by Dan just giving a slight appreciation to him for something that he took for granted, it gave him new hope for the world and pushed him to move forward. And that's what we're trying to be able to do.
Yeah. Well, and what you just said makes me think of two things, which is the ripple effect and the butterfly effect. And it's kind of similar, right? You might not realize that one little thing that you do could really make a big impact on someone's life. And it might be a smile in line if you're standing in person somewhere. It might be a smile, quote unquote, online, on LinkedIn, on something. And that smile could be what we're talking about right here. And it takes more than just the blast, let's set up an automation through Zapier and do that. It does. You can't pull it off. So I think we need to throttle back our expectations of hitting the numbers, and then shifting it to how do you make the impact.
Right. It's that 80-20 principle, right? Being able to go through, so many people go, I'm going to send out 1,000 messages, and if I get that one sale, they're like, yay. But in fact, what they did was just piss off 999 people. But if you treat people like another human being with respect, even if you still get that one sale, you just made 999 advocates. And an advocate is so much more powerful than a single sale.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge piece that you're mentioning there. That just brings up a massive other world, which is you feel compelled to kind of talk about that person. Like I just kind of mentioned, Bob Berg, Go Giver, and I've interviewed him a couple times on the show, and he is just the most giving and genuine and nice person. You just feel compelled to pass the word along about. Now, of course, if his works and books were not great, then you wouldn't, but you have to have both of those in place. And I think that's a big piece. You can't just be seen as that, influencer and authority and expert in one spot. And then when they dig into your content, whether it's a website or masterclass or whatever the case is, then it's just really junky and doesn't have substance. So that needs to be a mindset that carries through all the way through your business.
And that's what we're trying to be able to do, right? To be able to humanize the way we are online. Humanize marketing. I had such a hand in online marketing in the early days. Working with MySpace, I was there. We were the first people to actually provide them ads, working with Yahoo and MySpace. So we actually helped create some of the first social media ads on there. And to be able to see where we've gone today, I had to be able to make a shift, and that's what I'm doing right now. And this is what StandOut the Way is about, is working with those influencers, those people that are adding value to this world, the heart-centered entrepreneurs, to be able to connect with this audience and to be able to humanize the way that we are online, because we've gotten so far from it.
Yep. So where does someone start when they hear this and they say, okay, maybe I've been doing LinkedIn the wrong way, quote unquote, doing LinkedIn the wrong way. What's the first place that you would tell them to start? We touched on watching for people that check out your profile and just send them that message. But here's the tactical question. If you're not connected with that person and you saw that they looked at your profile, you can't communicate to them because you're not connected. But
that's the connection message, right, Mike? So that's what you're actually looking to be able to do is if they're looking at your profile, instead of just sending, hey, Mike, I see you got a podcast. Me too. Let's connect, right? Or that the blank, the no message, connection as well too. This is a more humanized message because we're acknowledging that they took an action and they're reaching out to appreciate and start a conversation. Because like, hey, I noticed you checked my profile. I'd love to find out what pushed you to check me out, right? We're looking to be able to start a conversation. But even before that, that's one way to be able to go about it, to be able to send that message out in a connection message that actually matters. I mean, I get it all the time. Like I've been on stage where it's like, hey, Joshua B, because my first name on LinkedIn to be able to pick up automation is Joshua B and then Lee. And so it's like, hey, Joshua B, ever thought about using LinkedIn to get leads? I'm like, no, I've never thought about this. And like, you did not look at my profile.
Yep.
But, that's the thing too, is where I'm going to tell everyone to start. It starts with your profile. Unless you're looking for a job, it should not. And honestly, even if you are looking for a job, your LinkedIn profile should not read like a resume. It should be your career story, your career journey. Tell me how you got to where you are. Like if you look at my profile, Mike, I go all the way back to when I used to work at Chili's as a server because I want everyone to understand I didn't wake up one day. I'm the CEO, founder of StandOut Authority. Like there was a journey involved. I worked with different people. I did different things to get where I am. And these are the things that I think people miss. They forget to be able to share who they are. Like I talk about being a dad. I talk about writing my book. I talk about, all these things as a human that are not 100% business related, but we don't have a business life and a personal life, right? That'd be like having two different personalities. We have one life and we have to live it that way. And we forget to be able to do that on LinkedIn.
You mentioned personal life, and it reminded me of last week I was doing a training for our local Small Business Development Center, the SBDC here, and it was a group of people in this class that was like in week 8 or 9, and so me and a couple other people were doing some teachings on marketing, and one of the questions that came in was, hey, I went to this seminar put on by whoever, someone locally, and they were saying, don't you ever talk about yourself personally. You keep it business. And they said, what do you think? And I said, well, it kind of depends on your business, but for the most part, people want to hear little snippets about your personal life. Maybe not too much where it's uncomfortable, but just a snippet here or two. And it could be something as simple as, hey, it's fall in Colorado and my family and I drove up to Estes Park and watched the elk out in the middle of the street walking around and got some great pictures. How cool that was. And someone else might go, oh my word, I grew up in Colorado. I love doing that. Well, that's not personal weird, but that's personal flavor, a good flavor. So talk a little bit about how and when to integrate some personal flair.
Yeah, Mike. I mean, I love that because as human beings, we look for commonalities, right? That's how we have our friends. That's how we connect with. There's some kind of commonality. And you've got to be able to have that human. And I kind of use, and I'm not sure if, Mike, have you ever heard of the 10-20-70 method of posting?
No, other than it's probably like 10% pitch and 70% teaching and 20% something else.
Close. So it's 10% personal, right? Human beings connect with human beings, especially like on LinkedIn. So you need to know that I have kids, kind of like we were talking about. You don't need to know when they go to school, right? Like, so it's not Facebook. 20% of your content needs to be around your company. Not telling you how I can help you. Like, we don't want those here that go, hey, I'm going to teach you how to make 7 figures. Tell me how you've helped someone else, right? So it needs to be company stories of how you've helped your clients, testimonials, or things like that. Then 70% of your content should be, like you said, educational, right? We are constantly learning. People on this podcast are listening in to learn. If you find something you learned from Mike, share that, right? Because you are the person that's educating your audience. When you educate them enough to be able to have a problem, or they figure out they have a problem, they're going to come to you for the solution, even if it's not you. It was your content, but you provided it to them. So 10% personal, 20% company telling stories, and 70% other that adds value.
And I think that formula sounds great logically, but do you literally expect people to keep track and say, ooh, I've done 10 posts this week and only 3 have been, and so I'm at 28
It's more
points.
Conceptually, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to keep that, keep that in your mind. Yeah, if you're going to try and keep track, it's a little bit more difficult. It's more of a mindset I want people to think about when they're creating content.
Yeah, it should just be like, teach, pitch with a little P, teach personal. So I get where you're going with that. It's just, keep it in the back of your mind that, stories sell or facts tell, stories sell, that concept, and interweave some stories, maybe some personal, maybe some examples, case studies in with the educational content, because I've said this so many times that over the last 8-9 years, I think that the phrase content marketing is no longer valid. Back when it first came out, I remember literally I attribute it to learning about content marketing from Marcus Sheridan, and he was just teaching content marketing. Well, the reason I say content marketing no longer is a valid principle is content marketing is just pure good educational teaching in your marketing, and it shouldn't be a thing. It just should be your marketing. It should be the way you approach things, as opposed to shouting and pushing your ads. So when you use good content in your marketing, maybe use that great percentages, and have some personality in there, and maybe even stimulate engagement by going, hey, who else has done the same thing? Whatever you were talking about there. And maybe you start extracting people out of the woodwork that might resonate with that little piece of personal, knowledge.
Well, engagement is king. It's the fuel on LinkedIn, and that's what they're looking for. Likes aren't the fuel on LinkedIn, it's comments. So how can you actually put something out that actually engaging, that brings that commonality, that pulls someone in, but at the same time is, potentially polarizing. We have to be in a world. You have to be okay, right? Like, people make decisions based on some degree of love or hate, especially in the content world. They do not make decisions or engage on content they are indifferent towards. If they are indifferent towards your content that you're putting out there, you're just wasting their time and yours, and that's the number one resource that we all can't get back. So you have to be okay with putting out information that's going to drive that, and again, get those comments, and be okay with people that are going to love them or hate them, because you're going to have your haters. It's going to be okay, because if you have haters, you're also going to have the people that love you and that are going to become massive advocates for you and become your super fan. Yep.
Love it. Well, Joshua, it's been so great chatting with you here. Love your approach to marketing with that human to human. So keep making that impact. Thank you for coming on, and really appreciate your time. What's the best way that someone can reach out and learn more about StandOut Authority?
Yeah, no worries, Mike. Well, of course, surprise, surprise, everyone can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Joshua B. Lee and be able to connect. And Mike, I always love when someone actually sends me a personal message and tells me why they're listening to your podcast, right? Because that allows me and you to be able to reconnect. Like, Mike, look at all these amazing comments that I got. So that's always the best way to be able to do it. But of course, you can go to StandOutAuthority.com and be able to connect with us there too.
Joshua, thanks a million for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.